The center is in the line of fire again, and this time it's on the issue of the same-sex marriage. A plea was filed, a PIL was filed rather, and it was for recognizing the same-sex marriages under the Hindu Marriage Act and the Special Marriages Act. And the center, it told the Delhi High Court that the same-sex marriage wasn't permissible as it wasn't in synchronization, or it wasn't in acceptance with the laws, with the legality, with the values, and with the society. This is what the center, the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, he told the Delhi High Court. Now, the media outlets were very quick to pounce on this one single line that, oh, the center, the BJP ruled government, which has been always accused of being a fascist, of being not of the liberal ethos, it was now coming for the LGBT rights. It was now coming for the homosexuals. It was coming to ban the same-sex marriages. And you had all sorts of stories floating on Twitter, floating on various leftist media cables. But we need to look at the issue with a little depth. That what was the point that the Solicitor General was trying to make? What was the point that the center was trying to make before the Delhi High Court when it said that the same-sex marriage is not permissible? This is going to be the question we're going to try and find an answer to today. Now, a PIL was filed, as I told you. Now, of course, the PIL was being fought on the behalf of someone who had filed the PIL, and the advocate was there in the Delhi High Court. Now, the center raised some very important points while saying that why is it not permissible, and I'll go on them one by one. Firstly, the petition was saying that the legislation should come from the court. Now, the judiciary and the legislature, they work very independently. So the first point was very difficult to agree to here, that the court was supposed to legalize same-sex marriage. That is something that is to be done by the legislature. And this was the first point of contention that was put forward by the center, that the court cannot legalize same-sex marriage, cannot make a law for the same-sex marriage. The second problem was that even if a law came into place, it would run into contradiction with various other laws that relate to marriage in India. These were the first two problems that were put forward by the center. Now, what are these laws that run contrarian to the same-sex marriage? Let's go on them one by one. The first thing is the gender. Now, when it comes to marriage under the Hindu Marriages Act, under the Special Marriage Act, it's a very defined way that this is a male, this is a female. So the first point the center had, that if we are going to have the same-sex marriage under the Hindu Marriage Act or the Special Marriage Act, how do we decide who's the boy or who's the girl? Or how do we go about the gender definition as per se? Because it says homosexual marriage or it's a same-sex marriage. How do we go about the gender definition? How do we define it within the current boundaries of the law, within the boundaries of the laws that exist right now? This was the first question that was put by the center before the Delhi High Court. That of the gender. And how to define the gender, how to draw that segregation between two genders within a marriage. The second thing was the age. Now, there are different age stipulations for a man and a woman when it comes to marriage in India, when it comes to the Special Marriages Act or whatever there is. How do we go about it when it comes to a same-sex marriage? How do we define the age barriers here? How do we go for the age stipulation? This was the second point that was put forward by the center. The third was related to a very important point, which was domestic violence. Now, in the long run, we want the same-sex marriage to be accepted by the society. It should be accepted by everyone, irrespective of the geography, irrespective of the religion, the communities. The idea of decriminalizing same-sex marriage is that it becomes accepted in the society. Now, as marriage is accepted in the society, there are always marriages that go wrong. There are always cases of domestic violence. So, whenever there is a case of domestic violence, the law takes its own turn depending on who the girl is, who the man is, or who the boy is. The center had a very important question when it comes to domestic violence. It's not that domestic violence won't be there in same-sex marriages. Domestic violence is an individual issue. It's not a marriage issue at all. As a lot of people like to believe, domestic violence is an issue of an individual who cannot act in an appropriate manner. It's not a marriage issue. So same-sex marriages are not immune to domestic violence in that sense. So tomorrow, if an issue of domestic violence comes up, how do we handle it for same-sex marriages within the boundaries of the current laws that exist right now? That was another problem. To build upon that is the question of Article 498A, IPC 498A, which is relating to domestic violence. It has some very clear notions when it comes to husband, when it comes to in-laws, when it comes to dowry and things like that. How do we define those in the same-sex marriage? This was the question that were put forward by the center. For instance, if a wife dies within 7 years of marriage, cruelty is presumed and a probe is launched if there is unusual circumstances in which death has occurred or which the parents of the girl complain. There are probes that take place. There's a procedure in place. How do we implement the same procedure which is there for right now for marriages, for Hindu Marriage Act or the Special Marriage Act, for the same-sex marriages? Because again, going back to the first point, the gender is not clear. The definition of the gender here is not clear. So tomorrow if domestic violence happens, there will be a very legal turmoil if the case is supposed to go to the court. These were the questions the center had. Now, of course, the center also wanted that the people who had filed the PIL should come forward and take up the matter with the court instead of taking the PIL route. But of course, people who are suffering because of this issue, because they're not having the same-sex marriages being accepted, they might not want to come forward because of the issue of being tabooed and things like that, because it's still not very accepted in the society as much as it is decriminalized right now. So that is one problem. Now, the matter has been put forward to a hearing in October, but one needs to take a look at the center's stance. Now, the media outlets wanted you to believe that, they wanted to go, the BJP that is, they wanted to go for same-sex couples. They wanted to go against same-sex marriage. That what they said was somehow in not the best interest of people who believe in same-sex marriage. That was the one headline they ran. But underneath the headline, there is a greater issue the government is trying to fix. Tomorrow, if the same-sex marriages need to become a norm like the other marriages are between a man and a woman, the laws need to be watertight. There should be a proper law that addresses domestic violence, that addresses age, that addresses issue related or similar to 498A, the issues that are covered under 498A. So on that basis, the center shouldn't be seen as someone against same-sex marriages. And that is the clarity that needs to be shown by other media channels also, which they are not. So all in all, it's a good thing that the hearing will be continued in October later this year. But it's very important that these issues are addressed and perhaps separate laws come into place for same-sex marriages, or whatever appropriate route that can be taken legally should be taken, and it should be soon be legalized. That is what we believe right now. Thank you.